Hi, everybody. Welcome to Creating Safe Spaces in Digital Places. I am here today, and first I want to welcome my replay viewers. We are so thrilled to have you joining us today. My name is Tanya Kubo, and I am here with the fabulous Jen Buell. And we are going to be talking about creating safe spaces in digital places, or what I like to refer to as the proper care and feeding of Facebook groups.
I love that.
Now, what we're sharing today is applicable to the management, I think, of any online community. So if you have a membership site, if you use another platform to gather with your people, with your tribe, this is totally going to work for you. But I like to hone in on Facebook groups because I believe Facebook is the channel where most people go to both create and to really live out online community. So, and the reason that I have Jen joining me today is Jen is part of the team with me over at the Clutter Free Academy Facebook group. And I happen to think that we are the kindest corner of the internet, and we kind of rock the whole online group management dynamic. What do you think, Jen?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And not only does Jen help me out with Clutter Free Academy, but she also runs her own group on Facebook. So Jen has a couple of perspectives on it. And so I think that if any of this appeals to you, or if you know folks who run Facebook groups or have been talking to you about having an interest in online communities, I would ask that you would please share this video with them, because we are going to be offering some really important information, not just how to maintain groups, but how to start them well. So I think that this information is going to be particularly beneficial to people who are just kind of thinking like, maybe one day I might want a group, or should I have a group? Like, strategically, does that work with my plan? In addition to, I have a group, how can I make it better? Or I have a group, how do I fix it? Because that happens too. So definitely share this. I want to take a moment and welcome some of our viewers. So Diane Kim is joining us. I love Diane. So she's asking that we talk about the difference between a Facebook page and a Facebook group, because she needs to know what to do differently in them. And so you know what, Jen? This is not part of our agenda, but I think that we should tackle this first off, don't you?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. And then Jennifer Bryant has a group, and she needs advice on how to engage more regularly and to make it better. So we're definitely going to talk about that. And Diane but let's talk about Diane's point first, because I think that's really important. Would you like to share your thoughts on the difference between a page versus a group on Facebook?
Well, for a long time, I had a public page and I knew how to do that. And that was just sharing content that I had put on my blog for their encouragement, posting funny things that I thought would bring a smile to their day. It was all me driven. And I wanted to create a community that was interactive. And I think that's the difference between a page and a group. A page is me just throwing all the content and them commenting on it, which gets some interaction. But in creating a group, you create a place where they can post their questions, concerns, things that they're cheering themselves on for and need some, pats on the back for. My group is actually a closed private group. They have to request to join. It's for Christian single moms, and I wanted to make it that specific. But today was the first time that I really saw some of the fruits of that. I only started it mid-October. So my group is still just a fledgling group. And today, a mom posted something she was struggling with about Christmas. And I loved seeing that other moms popped in immediately with encouraging, how can we help you? What suggestions do you need? How can I pray for you? And those kind of interactions are what I was longing for in this group. So I think that's the basics of it. Is a page is all you offering stuff to them, which is great, but a group is creating conversation.
I love that. That is exactly it. The difference between a page and a group is that A page is a broadcast model. It's you pushing content out, and people may or may not comment. It really depends on the comfort level, but oftentimes you're going to have your more extroverted people who are commenting, right? Because pages are public. So whatever they write on your page, people are going to be able to see. Groups are private, they're interactive, and that's where you get true community. Now, it's not that there's not public groups, but most groups I have found that are successful are actually closed groups. And like you said, they've got some gateway measures to them. There is a certain level of intimacy, a certain, like a little deeper knowing of each other. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, I would encourage anybody watching, whether you're live, whether you're on replay, go ahead and type your comments or questions in the comments, because we're definitely, like, we want this to be as interactive as we like our Facebook groups, right, Jen?
Absolutely.
And so
we'll go back and view this later. If you are watching it on replay, we're going to go back and check on it for a little while after.
Yeah, because I think that this is an important area, and I don't see people addressing it very well, right? I see a lot of, and we're going to start talking about this, because I think the first thing that we need to talk about is the culture and climate that you set up in your group. So as a social media strategist, and as somebody who works to help writers and speakers and entrepreneurs really amplify their message and build deeper relationships in online spaces, I devour everything I can find on online community. And I find tons of stuff on how to monetize your online communities. But what I don't find information on is culture and climate of your online community. So I want to make sure that we provide that information, because I think that it's so important that it's out there. So to me, Jen, the most important thing you can do when you're running a Facebook group is to proactively create a culture and a climate, to sit back even before you start it. But you know what? It's never too late. And have a conversation with yourself. What do I want this group to be? Who do I want to be in this group? And how do I want them to interact with each other? Could you share from your perspective why group culture is so important in online communities?
Well, I can give an example of a bad group culture I was in, not because it was negative, but because the understanding of the person that created it was not clearly communicated. Mm-hmm. And there were people in it interacting in ways that the admin didn't like. So day after day, there were posts chastising people and go read the rules, but you'd read the rules and you wouldn't understand what they were creating. I ended up leaving the group because I couldn't figure out how to play ball in this particular ball field. So I think it's important that you decide what your culture is. I mean, you did a coaching call with me before I set up my group, and that was one thing you were very specific, that it's okay if you want it to be a very small community. Just be clear about that. Have questions that will ask the right things so that people know this is what this is for specifically. And then once you've created that community, be true to that, be consistent with that.
Exactly. So I love that you said that. The other thing that I think people, okay, well, let me just talk to myself or talk about myself when I was not trained in this, right? There is a tendency and a desire to serve everybody. Yes. And so when you're serving everyone, right, you're actually serving no one. Like, we know that. Like 10 years ago, like, we didn't realize that about like niche marketing, but now we understand that the narrower your niche, actually the better you serve, and you tend to be more successful. So culture and climate, I think, is important, because just like you want people to show up and know they're in the right place, you want to make sure people know when they're in the wrong place so they can exit.
Yes. And not feel called out.
Right. And that's the other thing, is like shaming. Like, we'll get to that, because you know I'm like really passionate about how you do things. Yeah. And Clutter Free Academy is not the only online community I manage. I mean, I've managed, I managed groups back in the day before MySpace. Back. Do you remember forums? Yeah, I managed forums.
Forums. Yeah.
And I managed the comment section of a newspaper. Talk about a certain level of humanity that you encounter there.
Wow.
And that's part of why I'm such a passionate fan of Facebook groups, because it's such an improvement over what we used to have out there. So we have the culture and climate, we have why that's so important. And I love that Jennifer Bryant, she remembers forums too. So we have, how do you create a positive culture? So I think there's three key parts to creating a positive culture. I think there is laying a strong foundation. I think that there are certain best practices. Some are general, and they're just like, you know what, you could have a checklist of these and everybody should have them. And some are more specific to the community you're trying to reach. And I'm just going to put it out there. It is your job. If you are running a group, it is your job to protect your people from predators. And there are ways to do that. And I know, like, a lot of us, we create a Facebook group because we like want everything to be all hunky dory and let's get together and like with our tea or our coffee. But the fact is there's people out there who have different intentions. And if you're going to run this community, you have a responsibility to those individuals. So let's start with foundation. What do you think are some important foundational things to have in place when you're creating a positive culture?
A clear understanding of what your market is for this group, what belongs in this space, and clearly communicated on your about section of the page so that when people stumble upon it before they've even asked to join, they can read and see, oh, this group is for people that love to collect blue widgets, that this is what they love. And I like green widgets, not for me. So, right? So yes. Stumbling upon those very clear guidelines, I think, are very important. And maybe encouraging ways to say, we're going to be nice, we're going to play nice in this sandbox. Yeah.
So like you can establish group rules, right? Facebook allows you to do that. Now they are on the about page, and unfortunately, it's not like Facebook forces them in people's faces. I wish it did. But you can establish them, and I think you get up to 10 rules that you can put. The other thing that I think, so you do ground rules. I believe very strongly in ground rules. And I don't believe them in having them from a punitive place, but I believe that when you have them, then folks come on here and say, this is what I view ground rules even better. I view them as the promise that you are making to your community. I promise you that this is what I'm going to provide to you. So when I say no solicitation, I promise you, not that I'm going to kick you out if you solicit, I promise you that I'm going to protect you from solicitation. So, and I try to frame our rules in a way that is positive like that, so that people feel like, oh, okay, this is the community understanding, this is the group conscience, as it were. I also think that gateway questions are really important, and hear me out on this one, because I used to be anti-gateway questions. And I know a lot of digital marketers are, because it's like, why would you create a barrier to group growth? Like, that's just one more thing the person has to do in order to join. You know what? When it comes to a group, I think you do want one more thing. You do want a barrier to entry, because this is a special place and they have to earn the right to be there to some extent. What do you think about that?
Oh, I had a great example of that a couple of weeks ago. And like I said, I just started my tiny little group in October. So every time I get somebody wants to join the group, bells and whistles go off in my head and somebody wants in, and I have my screening questions that are very simple. And I had 3 people apply in one day that did not answer the question. So I always send a private Facebook message to them and saying, hey, I saw you applied to join this group. Can you please? And then I reiterate the questions. 2 of those 3 people answered back that they were not, in fact, Christian single moms, but they had amazing business opportunities they love to share with single moms. No, sorry, bye-bye. That's not the purpose of this group. And so it was really easy for me to protect my people, despite the fact that that meant 2 of those 3 that I was so excited to get went away. But it was worth it. I know I'm protecting my people.
Well, and it's worth it, right? Because not only are you going, okay, you're not part of the population, but then you can go to your group, because I think it also provides really good content, right? Later on, like you can go, oh, okay, now I understand some of the things that Christian single moms face just by the people who I feel like are kind of, I don't know what the verb is for predator for some reason.
Right?
People who are
Preying upon.
preying, that's the word. People who
Not
are trying to
praying,
preying
praying,
upon. Yeah, right. I mean,
right?
if you got like an influx of like dating coaches, right? You can be like, okay, obviously there is a market out there that thinks that Christian single moms are dateless and desperate, and they're trying to capitalize on that. Maybe I can speak to that in my blog, or I know that you have a podcast as well. So maybe you could address that in your podcast. So I think that that's a really good point with those gateway questions is weeding out people who have less than the best of intentions for your people, but also I think those gateway questions give you some great insight into felt needs on your market.
Yeah,
And I know that we
absolutely.
use that a lot for Clutter Free Academy, right? Like we are probably, I don't want to go out because I don't know the numbers specifically, but I think one of our most popular podcasts last year or this, in the year was a 2-part episode on hoarding. And
Mhm.
Clutter Free Academy is not about hoarding. It's not there to serve hoarders. It's not there to help hoarders. Clutter is very different from hoarding. But we had gotten an influx of members. We picked up like 500 members in a month. And of those 500, a good 150 in the gateway questions responded that they were dealing with hoarding. Now, most of them, it had to do with a parent or a loved one who was ill. And so they were, or had died, and they were coming to clean up. And they were joining the group because they just didn't, they were overwhelmed by the stuff and they didn't know how to do that. But they also were hoping that they could maybe get a better understanding of their loved one through
Mhm.
participation in the group. And so we said, hey, we're not here to fix hoarders or to fix hoarding like that. That's an area out of our scope. But you know what? We can, because both me and Kathy are children of hoarders, we can appreciate what it's like to love a hoarder and how
Yeah,
difficult that is. So we can do a 2-part podcast to that population. What do you do when you love a hoarder? And that does fit within the Clutter Free Academy scope. And that never would have happened had it not been for those gateway questions in the group. So not
absolutely.
only should you have them, you need to pay attention to them. And I keep a
Yeah.
spreadsheet. I don't know about you, but I keep a spreadsheet that has everything, and it's time consuming. And we'll get to the time consuming part a little bit, but I think it's
I
worth
did
it.
because you told me to. I started a spreadsheet because you're right. There are felt needs that you hear as somebody pours out how they didn't expect to end up a single mom, and this is how that happened. And start to understand this is a hurt point that they need encouragement and hope spoken to. So yes, I love keeping that information.
So we've talked about the foundation. We've shared some best practices already, and we've talked about predators. Now, what I'd like to do is so we've talked about how. I'd like to move into the maintaining, because
Mm,
creating and maintaining are kind of the same, but not exactly, right? Because what I have found is the culture of a group can shift in an instant. Like when we had 500 members join in 1 month, we had to go back into the mode of creation. Like
yes,
we had to double the time that we invested in the group. Typically, what you'll find is you spend a lot of time creating a group, establishing culture, and then the group manages itself.
yeah,
But when you have a big number of new members, you've got to go back into creation mode because you've got a whole bunch of people who don't know the established culture and rules.
right,
And two things can happen, right? They can post something that's not aligned with the group, and the established members can jump on them and pounce, and that's not pretty.
right.
Or they can shift it, and you don't want either, right? So
Right.
I don't think it's easy, but it is very important that you suit up and you show up to your group consistently.
Yes.
You are never too good to be with your people, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And I think
No,
like anything, right? If you don't feed it, it's going to wither and die. Or in the case of a shifting culture, you get a bunch of negative Nellies or a bunch of people who like are a little bit trolly. It's overcome by weeds. Why don't you talk a little bit about maintaining culture? Kind of what's been your experience and
My
what are maybe
experience
some
is,
best practices?
my experience has been kind of a learning curve because I am a busy single mom and I can forget, oh, yeah, that's right, I'm running a group and only check in once or twice a day. But I think that once or twice a day is why it is slowly growing because I am checking in to see what the conversations, what are the comments. I'm posting almost daily. I will be honest that I'm still getting into that groove of planning out a social media calendar and consistently putting things in. But when I do, they are things that fit the culture I'm trying to promote, right? They're fun memes, they're encouraging things, they're not bash your ex, they're not negative trashing. And if somebody posts something they're struggling with, I want to offer them sympathy and encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those things are necessary so it doesn't, you're right, spiral and shift the feel of what is going on in the culture. But I think show up is absolutely the number one thing. You are absolutely right. You need to show up and be present in the group.
And let's make one thing really clear, right? Is Facebook has some tools in place that you don't actually have to show up live for your
Right.
people to feel like you're showing up, right? You're now able to schedule your group posts.
Yes.
It's not always 100% reliable, but 9 times out of 10 it works out. And so, like something we have in Clutter Free Academy, right? We have these daily challenges because we know that some of our members need direction every day. And so it's like, we have meal plan Monday and we have to-do list Tuesday. And so those are actually scheduled. Those go up at 6 a.m. every day because we want people to be able to count on them. And we want most people, depending on your time zone, of course, to wake up and to see them on a consistent basis. But hey, every now and then I want to sleep till 6:05. So we have to make sure that, they're there. So we just schedule those consistently.
Yes.
And that works. And you can do that. You can do that with memes. You can do that with any other posts that are just a little bit timeless. And then that frees you up to get in there and engage in comments because I think that that's where the true connection happens.
Absolutely. Good point. The scheduling has been amazing. Like when I went to Leverage, the Communicator Academy conference, I scheduled posts before I left so that they went up and I didn't have to, while I'm trying to learn, duck out to check on my group. I could check on them later in the evening, see how the day went. But yeah, those scheduled things are a godsend.
Great. So the other thing, well, is there anything else you want to share, I should say, on maintaining culture of your group? I just want to make sure that we cover that really well.
We're good. I think we're good.
All right, awesome. And then now what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about Clutter Free Academy because we're heading there to like just a little bit toward the end of our time. And I know for some people, they're like, okay, well, this all sounds good, but like I need to see it in action. And so if that's you, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little feedback, which is why I keep stumbling over my words. If that's you, then I encourage you to join us. So you can just look at Clutter Free Academy. You can look that up on Facebook and just click on groups. We have 6,700 members. We have been around since the spring of 2017, so not that long. And we've grown fast. I remember when we started that group and we said, oh, we're going to be so happy if we get 100 people. And then we had 1,000 people. And we were like, oh, maybe it's not just us and our parents who like this, right? And then it got bigger and it got bigger, and we are just having a blast. So I will put that in the comments as soon as the broadcast ends. But you can join us over there at Clutter Free Academy if you just kind of want to say, okay, I've watched this video. I've seen how they say things should be done. Now let me see it in action. One of the things that I will also say is, as your group grows, don't be afraid to ask for help. Jen, you know, that's something that I had to do early on. You know, I started Clutter Free Academy as a one-person show, and it didn't take long before, you know, because you were a member and you were posting, and I was like, so, hey, can you help me out? Because like I can't stay up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yep.
And, you know, and it started off with you like helping me out a little bit on weekends, and then your role grew. And then now we've brought on more people to help out with the administration and moderation. And mainly we do that because we want it to be the kindest corner of the internet. And because our cluttery friends tend to be really hard on themselves. So when there's a post where somebody is just feeling like they're not winning on any front, we want to make sure that one of us can come in there, lift them up, encourage them, in addition to pointing them out to resources. So the other thing I want to bring up really quickly, because it's brand new and very, very exciting, is Clutter Free for Life. So this is a new program that we are launching January 1st, and this is actually a subscription-based membership. So Clutter Free Academy on Facebook has 6,700 members, and it's incredible and it is thriving. And we do these challenges and we do book clubs and we really like dig into the emotions behind clutter. But what we're finding is there are folks that just need a little bit more. I always laugh because they're like, I would be great if Kathy lived with me. And I'm like, Roger's not giving Kathy up. Sorry.
No, he likes her.
Yeah, no. So Kathy Lip is not going to move in with you and help you organize and declutter your home. But Clutter Free for Life is this great opportunity that as a subscriber, you can get an action plan for the habits that you need to do every single day. And right now, through the end of 2018, you can sign up and it's $79 a year. So that's pretty good. I'll go ahead and it's just clutterfreeforlife.club, but I'll put that URL in the comments as well. We are about out of time, Jen. So Jen Buell is here, and she actually has a website of her own. She's a podcaster, she's a writer, she's a speaker, really reaches out and empowers Christian single moms. Is there anything else you'd like to add for us today?
I would say if somebody really is serious about growing a group, to hire Tanya. And she doesn't know I was going to say this, but Tanya did an incredible coaching for me that took all of the fear and all of the reason I was procrastinating. And it was so helpful. So after you listen to today's broadcast, if you're ready for a next step, talk to Tanya. Well, it sounds like we may have lost Tanya's voice, so we're just going to call it a night. And thank you so much for joining us today. And we will see you on Tanya's next 12 days of Facebook Lives. Bye.